So round two, paired against Jeffrey Wang, who again FIDE rating 1642. His USCF rating is like I think close to 2100. So yeah, definitely very underrated kid in terms of the FIDE. There's actually another reason why I wanted to play the 3-day section for this tournament, because the first two rounds, the G60s, this was also a game in 60 minutes for each opponent. Those aren't FIDE rated, so I don't have to risk losing like 50 points if I lose a game to like a 2100 level player, which can definitely happen. Anyway, I started off with knight f3. And this is something I often play if my opponent is like a QGD player or Slav player. If they're going to go like d5, then I like starting with knight f3 here and just kind of being a little bit flexible with the setup. d5 was played and now e3. So I think this is known as e3 poison. There's this book that was written by Grandmaster Axel Smith, who also did the woodpecker method, and he kind of laid out this repertoire. But people, I think, were definitely doing this before the book came out as well. Now I just kind of refer to this as the E3 poison stuff. Basically, the idea is to eventually go c4, b3, bishop b2, and just to kind of delay d4 until we get a more suitable moment where we really need to fight for the center. And the idea is that it just kind of avoids different things that black can do. It also forces black to come up with their setup without, being in book. Right? A lot of players, they don't really take this seriously. Not that they should. It's not like white is fighting for any kind of crazy advantage here. But most players, they just kind of develop their pieces casually. You force them to kind of figure it out on their own pretty early on. And a lot of times I feel like I do get a nice structure in this opening. So that's basically what I'm playing for. I'm just playing for like a good version of like a typical isolated queen pawn position or like hanging pawns. And I'm hoping to then outplay my opponent in that structure. So knight f6, c4, e6, b3, bishop e7, bishop b2, castles, knight c3. And okay, black has many other options as well, but this is a very typical setup with a classic Queen's Gambit declined type of thing. Black has many options. They can go b6, c6, c5 as well. All kinds of, you can play like Queen's Indian, semi-Slav style, and yeah, but I'm happy to face all of it. Here black goes c5. And now that black plays this one, white takes, e takes d5, and now d4. And this is kind of the idea of delaying d4. I was basically waiting for c5, or for black to just commit elsewhere. And now if black takes on d4, we're just taking back with the knight and then playing against the isolated queen pawn. And I believe that this position is just very nice for white. Like, I really like it. I'd be happy to play it against anyone. Objectively, black is probably fine in these positions, but I much prefer playing against the pawn. So this is something I definitely believe in. Instead, black plays b6, which makes sense, just not committing to anything. But one day, one of two things will happen. Either black will take on d4 and I'll take back with a piece, or at some point, maybe I'll take on c5 and black will get the hanging pawns, and at some point we'll get one of these structures. So bishop d3, bishop b7. Here I castled. Knight d7, rook c1, and I'm just kind of developing normally here. Rook c8, and queen e2. This move is often connected with a plan to go bishop a6, which looks kind of counterintuitive because we would think that this is black's bad bishop, and definitely it's not a great piece. But there's more going on here than just the bishop. Number one, it's often in white's favor to trade minor pieces if you get some kind of isolated queen pawn, because when you take minor pieces off the board, black gets less counterplay, and all that's left is just weak pawn on d5. But secondly, the bishop is also defending this pawn, and it's like a very important defender of the pawn itself. Not to mention a lot of the light squares on the queen side. So it's kind of a typical idea for white to try to get the queen to a6 and then knight b5 and some pressure. So here black goes c takes d4, which I was very happy to see. I think this was definitely not forcing the position and just gives me a good position. But yeah, my guess is black just wasn't sure what to do. Probably something like rook e8, I think makes more sense. And yeah, just trying to keep the tension as long as possible, because now we clarify the structure, and I have all these squares I can jump to, and it just felt like white's setup is more or less perfect here. So rook e8, rook fd1, bishop f8, and here after a bit of a think, I end up going h3. I remember I was considering lots of different ideas here, like I was definitely thinking about bishop b5 and bishop f5 and bishop a6 as well. And then ultimately I thought they're all kind of good, but I didn't really want to commit to anything for some reason. Like I thought, okay, I can go bishop f5 here, then maybe g6, bishop h3, and okay, this pin is annoying, but I don't know. Now I give up on the chance to play bishop a6 ever again, and this was kind of my idea from before. So I felt like this is kind of switching plans, and I didn't see 100% why I should do this. And then bishop e5 I also thought was kind of annoying, but then I, again, didn't see what my plan is from here. So again, not a lot of time, g60, finally decided, okay, let me just play h3. This move is useful no matter what. Black will probably play something like g6, or maybe not. Maybe because g6 is a very typical move in this position, but a lot of players, I imagine, maybe don't want to because of the bishop on b2. So let's just see what he does. H3 improves my position, and etc. I'm not really losing out on any chances to go bishop a6. And if black ever tries something like knight e4, I feel like in general, the idea for white is to take this one. And this structure I feel like is also very nice for white. So something like bishop b5, maybe taking first actually, and then bishop b5. And yeah, I just feel like white has some very nice pressure here. So to my surprise, black ends up playing bishop c5. And very puzzling, right? Because he goes bishop f8, h3, and then bishop c5. Okay, threatening the knight on d4, but white has a lot of ways to deal with this one. And yeah, seemed like a loss of time. So now I decide to go bishop b5, now that I'm defending this one and also pinning knight on d7. And then my follow-up here, I was starting to think I'm going to go a3, b4 to just kind of gain some more space, push black back, and then eventually, again, we'll go for bishop a6. And yeah, here black goes rook f8. So he's really, really starting to drift. Because, okay, the pin is annoying, but it's not lethal. Like, I didn't think I have any super concrete threats with this pin. And yeah, but rook e7, then, okay, the rook gets hit with knight f5, and the bishop runs short on squares. I can understand why he didn't want to do this one, but now rook f8, yeah, it feels like it's all kind of going wrong for black. But I stay patient. A3, just kind of slowly looking to advance. Knight e5, and here I go b4. And I really was actually just expecting bishop takes d4 here, which I think was a mistake because my opponent goes bishop d6, which I think is objectively a much better try. I don't know why. I guess I just felt like he moved so much time with the bishop that his plan is just to take on d4, but this was maybe just like a naive assumption. Because yeah, after rook takes d4, I mean, white still has a very clear advantage here, and the bishop is on the diagonal, so I felt like this has to be good for white. But no, of course he goes bishop d6, and he tries to get knight c4 and bishop b8, queen d6. Some counterplay. I mean, very logical that black would try to play this way. I still felt like I'm doing very well here, so I go bishop a6. And now I just revert to this plan. And I kind of set like a little bit of a trap here because it looks like, well, the most comfortable thing for black to do is to take, queen takes, and play knight c4. Because why not? You have this square. Why not put the knight here, attack the bishop? But after bishop a1, the knight on c4 is actually kind of dangling because I have knight takes d5, which I think my opponent kind of underestimated. And so this is hanging, and now, of course, a7 is also hanging. So now black has two pawns that are hanging, and he doesn't really have a great way to defend both of them. So my guess, I was thinking, okay, probably black shouldn't go knight c4, should play like queen d7 or something. Then I was happy with my position. I can go like either knight to b5 and continue putting pressure. I can also look for some like e4 ideas with the queen on the d file. I wasn't too concerned. Maybe somewhere at some point b5 and try to get the knight to c6. So yeah, knight c4, bishop a1, queen d7. He ends up playing. Bishop b8. I'm not sure. I think I can still. Oh, and this one, actually, yeah, thanks for asking the question. Yeah, I don't think I can take this one. I think my plan was to play here, though, knight f5. And now I'm threatening to take here, which is very cheeky, and knight e7 check. And I also want to go like e4. And so I felt like, okay, black isn't losing the pawn just yet, but the position seemed like it was about to collapse. And like if queen d7, I think I was calculating stuff like knight takes d5 here. And it all looked very, very good. I'm not 100% sure. I have to like double check, but I'm pretty sure this was the idea. Like we have knight e7, and then if takes, rook takes, this kind of thing. And again, knight e7, yeah, just nice tactics. But okay, on queen d7, I think I can also play like e4 maybe. So I was just going to kind of choose in the game. But anyway, queen d7 was played, and now knight takes d5. I think this is just winning a pawn. Knight takes, rook takes c4. And here black played knight c7, which I can understand because at least, okay, it forces white to maybe get into a slightly precarious situation with the queen, but I'd already seen that the queen isn't getting trapped. I'm always escaping either via the b7 square, or I can probably just take here and then go queen c6. So I felt like I'm not really in any danger here. But anyway, queen takes a7, rook a8. I mean, black could have taken on c4, and then it's only one pawn, but I thought, okay, it's pawn up. We have knight b5 coming. Stuff is hanging on the d file. Likely very close to winning already. So knight c7 takes rook a8. I take this one because I didn't see why not. And now rook a6. And yeah, very important moment, because while my opponent was thinking, or actually I think even before I took this pawn, like I was considering either queen takes b6 or queen b7. I was thinking, oh, if I take rook a6, I have queen b7, and I'm totally fine. The queen is safe. But I can also go rook takes c7 actually on rook a6. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, great. So I was like, okay, I have two good options. Like rook c7 looks like just wins immediately because queen is hanging, and then if queen takes rook, queen takes a6. Then here I started double checking things, thankfully, and he ends up going rook a6. And here I realized, oh yeah, rook takes c7. He has queen a4. The tricky kid. And then rook on d1 is hanging with mate. Bishop is covering h2 square, and queen on b6 is still hanging as well. So yeah, this I definitely could have blundered had I not double checked this one. But okay, yeah, exercise some good habits here, because yeah, this is exactly the kind of move that you can miss. And yeah, I mean, I looked at it a little further because I thought, oh, I can take here maybe, and I get a lot of material for the queen. But no, there's queen takes d1, queen f1, and bishop h2, and white loses the queen anyway. Yeah, so yeah, fortunately I avoided that one. I just played queen b7. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of players would have blundered it, but well, that's, you got to be careful, guys. Yeah, thankfully I practice what I preach. You got to be careful. So queen b7, rook takes a3, and now white has 2 pawns up. Pieces are super active, so I felt like things are good. I played b5 because it looks like b6 is a very annoying threat, and the b pawn is just running. Queen d8, and I really like my next move here. It's kind of like an anti combination, because in all of these lines earlier, you know, I was always considering moves like knight c2 and stuff, and like hitting the rook and opening up the rook on the d file. But there was always bishop h2 check that's a problem, and then the rook on d1 may be hanging. So always something to be calculated. And then here I was, you know, my first thought was like, oh, knight f5, and then I remember like, oh right, bishop h2 check. But actually, I started looking at it a little bit further, and I realized it's still completely winning for white. So I kind of like it because I played it anyway. It's like a little anti-combination, because now, okay, because of the pin, black is essentially forced to win the exchange. Queen takes d1, but now bishop takes g7. And yeah, I realized, okay, the position is just totally busted for black. Everything is hanging. Knight is hanging, rook is hanging. I have rook g4. I have like mates with the knight. It's just completely over. And so, yeah, just too many threats. He played queen d3, which I felt like, okay, was maybe the only only reasonable move, at least counterattacking stuff. But now, like, literally everything wins for white. Like, I can take here, queen takes f5, bishop takes f8, and I'm up a million pawns. Black's king is super weak. Also, he doesn't even have king takes f8 because queen d6 check, and the rook is lost. I can play this one, which I think is completely winning again. Takes, and yeah, again, million pawns up. But I think what I did was simple enough. Bishop takes f8, queen takes c4, bishop takes a3, and now I'm threatening mate on the back rank. Knight is, of course, under attack. I'm up a piece. A good time to resign for black. So that was game over. So yeah, this game again I felt like was pretty clean. Probably cleaner than the first game, because I don't think my opponent had really many chances out of once we got to the middle game. And yeah, I felt the calculation was good. I avoided blundering the rook c7 queen a4 trick. That would have spoiled the event for sure if this had happened. that would have just cut things off right at the get-go. And it's so easy to fall into this one, right? Because if I could take you guys through the psychology at the board, at this point my opponent looked completely defeated, because he already lost like 1 or 2 pawns, and he understands like the game is pretty much hopeless. And so it's very easy to just kind of like, okay, like let's just wrap it up, just kind of quickly play this one. And yeah, it's never too late to blunder. Actually, Alex Linderman just did a US Chess School lecture called "It's Never Too Late to Lose," and this could have been a good example for that. Yeah. So okay, I was happy with this one. 2 out of 2. And next game, round 3, would be the first longer time control game. So let's get into it.